I'm News Channel 5 Sports Director Andy Baskin out here in the Berea Complex for the Cleveland Browns. We are joined by WTAM Browns beat reporter Andre Knott, also our third amigo on News Channel 5. You like when we call you third amigo.
I love being the third amigo, yes.
Okay, Mr. Amigo, today the Browns, this is big news because we are definitely going to see an ownership change here very soon.
Yes, we're going to see changes here like we've never seen here before. I think since this team has been here, the Lerner family's been underneath it. We're going to have a completely different family running this team, and it could be a positive in going forward. I think obviously for Randy Lerner, he ended up being the owner of a team probably before he was ready to do it. And I think when you see that, I think that kind of plays into why the team was ran the way it was. I think when you see the new people that are coming in, it excites me because I know everyone reacted early on and saying, well, they have something to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, it was only 4 years that the Haslam family was with them. And I think what they learned in those 4 years is probably why the Steelers have been a successful ran team. And I think that's probably something, and I know it sounds sacrilegious to say it here in Cleveland, but I think that's something that's good here, that this somebody that's here is going to run this team that understands what it's like to be in the AFC North and what it means to win the AFC North as well.
Andre, I mean, if you use some kind of like business sense on this and you say to yourself, we've got company A, company B is a good company to work for, and they've shown a strategic plan that works, you might want to go to company B and try to bring them into your company, and that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. And I mean, not only are they've gone from the Steelers, but I mean, think about it. The Cleveland Browns wouldn't be here still if it wasn't for the Pittsburgh fans and if it wasn't for the Rooney family. And the one thing that I've learned in being around the Cleveland Browns in the last 10, 12 years and being around the Steelers ownership, the one thing that I give them a ton of credit for is that the Rooney family, they know each player. They know each player's family. They understand what it means to know the custodian, what it means to know the guy that runs the elevator. And I say all these things because at times, and this isn't a hit towards the Lerner family at all, at times there's been some disconnect between ownership, players, and people that work here. I don't think we'll have that issue anymore because I know the Haslam group will come from a group of people in the Rooneys that means everything to them. They are a family-ran team. They will end up being built upon tradition, and I think those are all things that the Cleveland Browns should look forward to having going forward.
Andre, let's talk about the Lerners for a second because you and I had this conversation before, and I'm sure you've talked about it on the radio, and I've talked about it on the radio as well. The Lerner family has been here long before they ever owned the Browns, and their philanthropic efforts throughout Northeast Ohio, it's very hard not to drive by a hospital or somewhere where you would see someone donate money. And I think in some ways the Lerner family, to be associated with the Browns goes against everything that was pretty much what they were for before they bought the Browns.
Absolutely, Andy. Anything I'm saying is not negative towards that family at all. The funny thing is, and I'll tell it quickly, but today, my wife is pregnant. We're in a hospital, and guess what the hospital's name had on it?
The Lerners.
The Lerners.
Yeah.
As this is all going on, it kind of tells you what goes around. They are wonderful people, and I think the thing this all goes back to is the unfortunate passing of Al. I think if Al was still here, I think a lot of things would have been completely different with how the team was ran, how things were put together. Obviously, you can't put that on anyone's fault, but I think that changes you look at any family, it changes the economy when you lose a father and someone like that. Nothing against Randy. He grew up differently than his father did, so obviously he's going to handle things differently. But you're right. If you go through any neighborhood, east side, west side, downtown Cleveland, the Lerners have been a fabric of what Cleveland is all about, and I think they still will be. I just think at the point in time where they're at right now with this Browns team, it's probably better off in other hands so they can continue to help in the hospitals around here and all the other things that they have done. I think the best thing that you can take from this, I don't ever want to hear a bad word about the Lerner family because really without them, we don't have the Cleveland Browns back here. And I think, as much as everyone's looking forward, where would we be in 1999 if you didn't have the families like a Lerner family willing to put as much money as they put in here? I remember Al Lerner put his own money into the stadium. You probably know this story. Right. There weren't elevators in the original stadium. So escalators,
yeah.
Excuse me, you're right. So who went out of his way, and Al Lerner goes, I'll pay for him and put him in there. You don't get a lot of owners that do that, and I think we should remember that as we go forward. A lot of times, a lot of people want to find negatives. I think of the Lerners and having the open pocketbook willing to help at any point in time, and I think that's something we should all remember as we go forward.
Well, I think the thing that I'll remember for the Lerners is during the lockout of last year that the Lerners continued to pay their front office staff when other teams around the league were laying people off. And that's not about paying millionaire football players. That's about sometimes even minimum wage people that are affected by the Browns, and they didn't miss a check.
No, you're absolutely right. And a lot of teams put people on furlongs. There was a lot of different ways to not pay people last year, and the Cleveland Browns were one of the only teams that did not do that. They stuck to keeping their people here. They kept everyone working. And I mean, really, you go around this neighborhood in Berea that we're in. Berea is the Cleveland Browns. They have helped this community tremendously. They've kept the money within this community, and I think that's something that stands for something as we go forward. Just because you may not be built to own a football team doesn't mean they haven't been crucial to what this society and what this community has needed.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Haslam family, because before they were involved in the Steelers, they were a family that wanted to get involved in the Tennessee Titans. Not a lot of people are talking about that today. Bud Adams wasn't about to give up the team for him, so now I think he found out where he wanted to go.
Well, that's a great point. This is, and just like with Dan Gilbert previously to buying the Cleveland Cavaliers, almost bought the Milwaukee Brewers. He wanted into the game. Not an easy game to get into, guys. You mentioned the Tennessee Titans. They obviously moved from Houston. Bud Adams still has a lot of money into that organization. He's not going to give it up. Heck, he put a great run after Peyton Manning this offseason, if you remember. That tells you how Bud Adams is involved. I think when you see this family, they're a football family. They're kind of a grassroots. I think that's what you want running something like this. They're excited about this. And I go back to the Pittsburgh thing. I think it's a good way to get your feet wet in this business, to go to a family-owned team like the Steelers. I'm not saying we're going to become a rerun by like the Steelers, but I think it's good that they at least have put their foot into this water. It's not like this is the first time. They'll understand what they're getting into. They'll understand what this division means. They'll understand what the rivalry means. Because, Andy, anyone watching this right now, you love the Cleveland Browns and you love the Pittsburgh Steelers rivalry. We don't have that. We need it back. Hopefully this helps it.
All right, Andre Knott, WTAM Browns beat reporter, also a member of the Channel 5 sports team as well.
Third amigo.
The third amigo. Thank you, Andre, and thank you for watching on NewsNet5.com.